Preseason officially in the rearview mirror, and the Arizona Cardinals' initial 53-man roster is set. That practice squad nearly set. We bring on our guy, Brian Baldinger, of course, NFL Network, your all-city NFL analyst, joins Johnny and myself. We're excited to break down some more of these performances throughout the preseason. But, Baldy, what do you remember most maybe from your playing days about this time of year?
Well, I was a free agent that made it with the Dallas Cowboys, back in 1982, and we had 125 rookies that went to camp that year, 110 free agents, 15 drafted players. It was a 12-round draft back then. And I was one of 6 that made it out of 125. So it was against all odds. It was the ultimate reality TV show back then, because guys were getting turked and cut every single day. Roommates that were playing cards with that night were gone the next day. I remember all of that. Then I remember literally there probably wasn't too many other cut days in my 12-year career where I felt 100% safe. Like, I always felt like it was an uphill thing. You always had to prove yourself. They were always trying to replace you through the draft or free agency as the years went by. And so it was one of those things that the feeling never goes away until the final countdown and the cut down was established.
Baldy, I think Cardinal fans are a little bit in a tight spot right now as it relates to this team. And again, Cardinals have lost, I would argue, 2 of their better young pass rushers here in the last month and a half. B.J. Ojulari, of course, goes down with an ACL. Now Darius Robinson is out, minimum of 4 games with a calf, but it looks like we're going to see him sometime in October. But then, 2 nights ago, Cameron Thomas, who we've highlighted on this show, has a nice preseason. The Cardinals basically give him away to Kansas City for Steve Spagnuolo to use at his disposal. Like, what do you think the thought process is behind something like that? Because again, like the Cardinals have this bevy of pass rushers. This was a group that was 3rd last in the NFL rushing the passer last year, and on paper right now, it looks like it might be about the same.
I agree. The Cam Thomas thing caught me off guard. Like, obviously, we had highlighted Darius Robinson that first game, what his role was going to be. Like, these calves are tricky. We saw it with Joe Burrow last year. You don't know. He's a big guy. You just don't know. I mean, if you think you're going to be ready in a month, you better take 6 weeks. It's one of those kind of things. You have to err on the side of caution. And so, BJ goes down. Like, all of a sudden you're down numbers, and you see Cam Thomas, who's had a pretty good preseason and looked pretty good coming off the edge, and you kind of give him away for, a late pick like that. I had a hard time understanding it. I know Xavier Collins is there. I know they drafted Xavier Thomas, but it doesn't look like it's a position of strength for him. And I thought Cam Thomas was a guy, honestly, that you could build with. He could give you, solid snaps. And to see him lose like that, like, I don't know, like, it's maybe there's something that we don't know about, that I don't know about, that forced that exit by Cam.
Yeah, it's a strange looking room, and you mentioned it, Xavier Collins, Dennis Gardeck, Xavier Thomas, Victor Dumakagi, Jesse Luketa. For now, how can they, especially going into week 1 against the Buffalo Bills team and a quarterback that's already tough to get down onto the turf, how can they generate enough pressure to get off the field on 3rd down?
Well, Nick and Jonathan are going to have to scheme guys open, I believe, and you're going to have to take your chances and roll the dice. But if you're sending 6 and an overload and Josh sees it and he goes the other direction, you're going to have a lot fewer bodies over there. And that guy can run a long ways. If you don't get it, he's difficult to get down, as you mentioned. Everybody's trying to get home with 4. I don't think that's going to be a strength of the Cardinals. But the best thing you can try to do to Josh Allen is somehow keep him in the pocket and try to box him and make him work from there. But even the best defenses that have tried to do that to him, if he wants to get out and run, he's going to get out and run.
Let's flip to the offensive side if we could, Baldy. Clayton Tune right now the default QB2. Desmond Ridder subsequently cut, brought back to the practice squad. I don't think a lot of Cardinal fans would feel confident with Clayton Tune having to start a game. Do you think there's a reluctancy with the Cardinals? Like, they traded for Desmond Ridder. It clearly didn't work out enough for him to overtake Tune, and yet Tune is kind of the placeholder now. I mean, like, with Kyler Murray missing time every year of his career, where do you think the Cardinals stand with a pursuit of maybe another quarterback now?
I mean, I'd be looking at the wire. I'd be looking at other teams. Taylor Heineke is a third quarterback. I mean, he's played a lot of games in this league. He's a smart kid. I mean, I don't know. I'd be looking around the league. I'd look at the Eagles, and Tanner McKee was available. I mean, I'd just go through the roster in my head of third quarterbacks that might be available. You saw the Green Bay Packers just trade for Malik Willis. They weren't comfortable with the two that they had. A lot of teams are keeping just two right now, which I never feel comfortable doing. Maybe they add one to the practice squad in some cases. But, practice squad guys can be plucked at any time. So, I would be looking around the league right now to see if there's a third guy out there that could either compete with Clayton Tune or maybe supplant him.
It's a unique preseason. None of the starters really played for this Cardinals team, especially on offense. No Kyler. We saw 3 snaps from Marvin Harrison Jr., no Michael Wilson, no Trey McBride, no starting offensive line. For that group, and with the pressure kind of coming onto them with the defense that might be undermanned, is it putting too much on the shoulders of this offense to have to come out and score a ton of points just to maybe be competitive?
Well, I'm not a fan of what they did. I mean, honestly, I looked at these other programs that are playing. I mean, it's either play them or don't play them. There's 2 different camps. The Rams didn't play their starters. Eagles didn't play their starters. I get it. But a lot of teams did play their guys. And I just think you're sharper if you've been through, and I never would call any of these things dress rehearsals. Dress rehearsals is what you do on Broadway. You don't do that in the NFL. I never liked that term, but I do think that you need, to build your timing and to feel the flow of adrenaline and all those things that happen game day to get that sort of going. But regardless, they're going to have to click. I mean, we've got to see Kyler and, Marvin. We got to see those guys get after it. We got to see the tight end pick up where he left off last year. We got to see the running game click. I think Buffalo is a good defense. I don't think they're a great defense, but they are a zone team. They're difficult to get the ball deep and over their heads. They just don't allow it. You got to earn what you get against that defense. And so, look, most of those players have been there for 4, 5, 6 years in Buffalo. I know they got some young linebackers, but most of them have been there a while now. And so they're very disciplined about how they go about their business. Taron Johnson is a great nickel, as good as there is in this league. He's a blitzer. His tackling ability is exquisite. It's a challenge. It's a challenge against that defense.
Baldy, I certainly don't speak for every Cardinal fan, but I do think it's interesting right now, entering year 2 with Jonathan Gannon, Monty Ossenfort. I think they've done a commendable job building this roster back up to respectability. With that being said, you got a $50 million quarterback, and I think a lot of people feel like the Cardinals might be 1 to 2 tweaks away from really competing and making the postseason here with the offensive infrastructure that they have. How do you balance that? Because I'm of the mindset, nothing's guaranteed in this league. And if you come into seasons thinking, hey, we're rebuilding, we've got ultimate cachet, and we're going to be fine, suddenly you could be entering a year 3 scenario with much more questions than answers, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, you start in your own division. And so, there's nobody that doesn't have the Cardinals 4th in this division. But you start by competing in your own division. Last year, Denver finally beat Patrick Mahomes in Denver after not beating them 6 straight years in a row. You have to eventually start winning games in your division. When they went to the playoffs 2 years ago, they beat the Rams. They ran the ball down their throats. That was with Aaron Donald. So at some point, you have to start making up ground in your division, and you have to win division games. That's where it starts. That's how you kind of build your roster to compete with San Francisco, the Rams, Seattle. A lot of changes have been made in those programs over the years, whether it's at the coordinator or the head coaching position. But that's where it starts. And so there is the idea that, okay, you may get a year last year, but they're under the microscope now. This is a full year with Kyler Murray. It's 2 years of building this roster. You have to show 4 wins won't do it. You have to show, and they were competitive last year. We talked about it. They played hard. That's great. Now you have to turn that into wins. And that's really, there's nothing else that really that they could do about that. They jumped on top of the Giants early last year. They couldn't finish it. They've got to finish those games when they jump on top of other bad teams. They've got to put those teams away. That's a big part of what Kyler's there to do.
We'll get you out of here on this one. When you look at the players that they have accumulated over the last 2 offseason, including this 12-person draft class that's now intact after the practice squad, who's kind of stood out to you, whether it's through training camp or preseason? I mean, we've heard your thoughts on Rabbit Taylor Demerson, Xavier Thomas. Anybody that you're really going to keep tabs on throughout the rest of the year on this Cardinals team?
Well, I mean, last year, they drafted Michael Wilson. I think he was in a 3rd-round pick. I mean, this is the 2nd year. Usually they need targets. I mean, we know that Marvin Harrison is going to get targeted, great. But we know that, McBride is a really good target, led the team in receiving last year. But they're going to everybody needs a 3rd guy. So I don't know if it's Michael Wilson. I don't know right now if it's Xavier Weaver. But they need a 3rd guy to emerge. And so, we didn't get a chance to see a lot of the guys. I want to see that. I want to see, honestly, what James Conner could do in his 2nd year behind this offensive line. I have a feeling they're going to be able to run the ball pretty well. I'd like to see them continue on that track to being able to do that. Now, we didn't get a chance to see the guys in preseason, but those are some of the guys I'm looking for in year 2 in this program.
This time next week, we'll be previewing week 1, Arizona Cardinals at the Buffalo Bills. Football, real football, not preseason, real football. Finally here, Brian Baldinger, Baldy's Breakdowns. Thanks so much, Baldy. We appreciate you and look forward to chatting next week for week 1.
You got it, guys. Look forward to it.
We all silly like the mayor.